Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the In the 11 podcast. I am your host, Brendan Griffiths, and this is the show where we bring on those from the world of football to show you what it takes to be in the 11 at the highest possible level. Now, in saying that, no guest for today, as you can kind of tell by the title. So if you're looking for a guest and you're unfortunately stuck with me for this whole episode, but I would encourage you to still stick around. It's going to be a good one. The podcast kind of originated as this, me sharing my story and, talking about my career, everything that I had been through. And today we're going to kind of get back to the roots. We've had amazing guests on. I've loved all of them. I would encourage you to go check those out. There's going to be tons more guests on in the future. But with so much going on in my kind of career at the moment, I wanted to take an episode to just share with you what's going on, what happened, what has brought me to now in my footballing career. So without further ado, let's kick the intro music and get right into it. Now, if you want the full context to my footballing career, you're going to have to go back to the kind of very early days of this podcast and listen to I would say those first 5 or 6 episodes if you really want to know my kind of full background and story, college, Germany, all that kind of stuff. But to just set a little bit of context to right now, 2021, I was in Denmark. I was in Denmark playing for a team in a city outside of Aarhus, but I was there kind of still when COVID was at more or less its height. It wasn't 2020, but it definitely still wasn't over yet. And that was reflected in the way that we kind of handled training in the beginning. We couldn't train until the government allowed us to. And then in the beginning, it was only in small groups. We had to be separated. There wasn't to be any interaction in like the changing room or, after training in the clubhouse, nothing like that. You had to show up, play, leave. And, things are closed outside in the city, stores, shops, restaurants, cafes, things like that. So there's not a lot that can really be done outside of football in that perspective. And all of that and being so far away from my family, being away from my family in the middle of the pandemic, it just sort of all kind of came crashing down on me, and my mental health kind of spiraled out of control. I had opportunities to potentially go and trial with higher level clubs. And I just said, you know what, I need to go take a step back. I need to go home. I need to get my head on straight and just figure out what's next for me. So I kind of cut my trip in Denmark a little bit short. I was supposed to be there for like 90 days. I left like just before because I also had issues with my player registration. That got done super late. So it was just a lot. I made my way back home. There was a brand new team that was going to be basically coming into my backyard, upstate New York, in the NPSL. It was called the New York Shockers. And I had signed to play with them for the summer. Came in, was playing really well. And then I picked up an injury. And I worked really hard to rehab it. I was just in such a crazy mental space after just coming home from Denmark, feeling like I was doing well in the team, then coming off, then getting hit with another piece of adversity that I have to face. And I came back and I started the first game that I was fully fit to. Thought I played really well. Next game got dropped. It happens. That's football. And I really struggled to get back into the team. And it was a hard experience for me. So leaving that NPSL or leaving that summer season, I genuinely thought this might be, kind of wraps on my football career. I might be done. After the experience I just had in Denmark, I don't know if this is really for me. I don't know if the dream that I once had for myself, if that's even really something that's out there. So I went into that kind of fall and I said, I'll focus on the podcast. I'll coach. I was an assistant coach at UAlbany. I was doing private training, coaching. I'll focus on the business with Ship It Studios that I still work on, which is awesome. And I'll just, I'll kind of focus on other stuff. I'll move on a little bit. I didn't really train that whole fall. Would kick a ball, go play kind of co-ed sometimes, but that was really it. And honestly, coming home from Denmark, that entire year of 2021 was honestly one of the hardest years of my life. Dealing with everything I went through in Denmark and then coming home with just so much anxiety, so many question marks, so unsure about what I was really going to do with my life and what had just happened to me. Like I didn't really know how to process it. Through a lot of hard work on myself, through a lot of support of professionals, through a lot of support of my friends and my family, I eventually kind of was able to get myself into a better space. And towards the end of that 2021 year, I was like, you know what? I think I might want to kind of at least go start to train again. I don't know if that means anything, but I want to go start to train again. So I kind of gathered a group of a bunch of the guys who had played in the summer and said, hey, let's see if we can get something going like in the mornings a couple times a week. That, quickly expanded to, by the end, we probably had, almost 20, 30 guys at each session to kind of run bigger numbers. And then that led right into the preseason again for the New York Shockers. I was playing again. I was loving it. I was playing well and I felt good. And then I had a really just kind of freak accident, but a really nasty injury in the beginning of March 2022. And this is kind of right around that time where I said, like, I'm starting to feel well. I'm playing again. I'm feeling like I'm playing well, and I'm kind of getting that itch a little bit. Like, hey, I feel like Denmark wasn't really the way I want to close this chapter. So I started to kind of put just feelers out, like Germany, different places in Europe, Central America, just kind of reaching out to connections and seeing, hey, what's kind of out there right now. Nothing really concrete. Then I said I had that injury and I broke my wrist. I just basically destroyed it. Like got hit with a ball and it just kind of popped my wrist right out of place. And I had to go and eventually have surgery, have plate and screws put in. It was a long rehab process and a long time for me to get back to being able to play soccer again without, risk of re-injury or anything like that. So I finally do that. And this is probably about 2 to 3 games into that season in the summer. And for those who, have played in the States before, you play in NPSL or PDL, you know that those seasons are, 8, 10, 12 games max, and they go by like that, right? So if you're 2 to 3 games into a season, you're just now kind of becoming fit and getting back into the squad. That's, potentially a third of the season almost gone or a quarter of the season gone. So I came back and, I thought I was kind of playing all right. I didn't light the world on fire, but I never really felt like there was any kind of realistic chance for me to get into that team or really kind of being looked at. And I felt like I just sort of accepted that was okay. I was like, this is football. I've grown so much. I understand now that this is sometimes the way football works. And, for whatever reason, I'm not this isn't in the cards for me this season, this team, this year. And I think it was kind of a conversation that I had with a couple people where I kept just saying that, and it sort of started to feel almost robotic. And I was like, yeah, it is what it is. That's football. And someone was like, it's okay to feel disappointed in it. And I never really like even thought about it like that. But I was like, yeah, I think there's certainly healthiness to treating that situation as if, hey, it's out of my control. Okay, I control what I can control, but also it's okay to feel the emotions that you're feeling. And if you feel disappointed that you're not playing, those two things can still remain true, right? You can feel that disappointment and also not let it overwhelm you and consume you. And so I think that was an important kind of thing for me to start to realize, that I've carried that along with a variety of other things into my playing career to this day. So I finished that season just training, right? I don't really get into any matches. And in the fall of 22 is where I think everything sort of came to almost a head, so to speak. Like, I think I realized that I'm like, okay, I have done the work coming home from Denmark to kind of, like I said, when I needed to come home, I needed to get my head back on straight. I did that. I'm home now. I'm sort of figured it out to a sense. And I've been here now for a year, and now there feels like I feel like I went from one extreme to the other, right? I went from like extreme discomfort to now like extreme comfort zone, living at home. And there wasn't really anything that was pushing me or challenging me. So it was like these two extremes. There just felt like constant friction or tension. And I knew that kind of like that fall 22, I needed a change of some sort. I didn't know whether that meant playing or not playing. I wasn't sold on really either one, but I needed a different job to move somewhere different. I just felt stagnant. I felt stale. And whether, the opportunity that I'm about to talk about came about or not, I don't think in 23 I would have been still living at home in New York just because I needed to get up and go. So I'm still at this point exploring options of playing, and I'm kind of exploring Europe a little bit more. Nothing really stuck. Nothing was really, and to be honest, I didn't have much of a resume, right? Like I had built momentum in Germany, I had built momentum in Denmark, and then all that kind of came crashing down. And I had spent, as I've just laid out to you here, the past 2 years with kind of mental health difficulties, physical health difficulties, don't really have consistent games, TV, nothing. So it's like, in a way, I wasn't starting from square one, but I wasn't, you know, kind of continuing to build on what I had created for myself the first time around in Europe. It was almost like starting anew. So didn't really get a lot of traction. And then things just started to kind of piece together slowly when it comes to Australia and New Zealand. I'd reached out to actually a couple people who have been on the podcast before that have played down there, had connections down there, and was having good conversations with coaches, with agents, a couple agents. Matter of fact, the agent that I even worked with to get myself over here now is an agent that I reached out to via LinkedIn. And Australia had always been a place that was sort of on my radar, but for whatever reason, it never quite aligned. There was never that interest for me to kind of just go and bootstrap it and do it on my own and fly to Australia and go try out with teams. I never really got a lot of response back from teams. Maybe that was because I wasn't in Australia, so they just were like, yeah, we're not going to really respond to this. It's probably not real. And any agents that I had spoke to about here, it was like, yeah, sure, we'll give you this, that, and the other, pay us $2,000 up front. And it was kind of like, all right, well, that's not really a sound investment that I'm going to make in here. So, like I said, I met this agent through LinkedIn, started to have conversations. I'm pretty wary at first because, that's what I was accustomed to, is agents reaching out or me reaching out and then them saying, hey, fork over a check for a big sum. And to be honest, the conversations went really well. And I kept, like I said, kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop, and everything went really well. And while all this is happening, I'm not really sharing any of this information with my family. I'm not really sharing any of this information with my friends. Really, the only people that I do talk to it about is guys that I've played with, like guys in the footballing community, just because I know that they're going to understand it. I know that me going from 1 month to the next or one day to the next and saying something like, hey, I think I'm going to go play in Australia, to the next day saying, hey, I think I'm done playing, and then going back again, any footballer is going to understand that. But I didn't feel like a lot of my friends and my family at the time were going to understand it, because they would be like, you just left Denmark where it was the hardest time of your life, and now you want to go back into something that caused you so much pain. And I think, to be honest, before I really lay out this Australia part, I can just address and speak to that. I think there was a lot of demons that I kind of needed to put to bed when it came to coming to Australia and playing. I needed to prove that Denmark, Denmark was the exception, not the rule, right? Like Denmark wasn't, I had put so much weight on it, and it was an experience that was a fluke. It was in the middle of a pandemic and all these other factors that led me to kind of being in that state. And it wasn't because I wasn't strong enough, or I wasn't good enough, or I wasn't, the list goes on and on. So I felt like there was so much that I still needed to prove, not wrong to other people or not anything for anyone else, but just to myself. I needed to give myself that confidence that I can go out on my own and do things. And one of those things kind of being football. So it was sort of like a personal mountain for me to climb rather than really anything else, I guess, if that makes sense. And I think I've just realized that football has kind of become a vehicle and a tool for me to grow and push myself and challenge myself. And it puts me in uncomfortable positions often and forces me to rise to an occasion. And it's something that I've grown accustomed to and I'm grateful for, even for all the shit that it's put me through. But anyway, I digress there. I was speaking to this agent via LinkedIn, started connecting via WhatsApp, had some messages. And I'm sure he'll be on the podcast as well in the coming weeks because we've talked about it. Ryan over at PlaySport Agency will certainly be doing an episode shortly, so you'll get to meet him and kind of talk about this process. But he kind of said, hey, like, this is the way that it works. You can sign with us. You can be exclusive to us. You can be non-exclusive to us, so you can still explore other opportunities. There is a little bit of investment up front. And then once you kind of sign on, we'll shop you out to all the clubs. And he had mostly connections here in Perth because that's where he lives. He also has connections to Melbourne and other markets as well here in Australia. So the investment to me was like so small, this for me personally, that I felt like, hey, if I put this in and I never hear from him again, I'm not going to be, devastated, right? Whereas if I had paid $2,000 before, like I spoke about with other agencies, and then I never heard from him, $2,000 is a lot of money for me. So this was very different, right? So I signed on with the agency. Communication still remains great. And kind of the plan was, hey, we'll try and get you a contract, but it may require you to actually fly here, go trial with teams, and see what fits, see who has interest, and see what we can do. I mean, of course, a contract before you go anywhere is always, it's amazing, but there's benefits to both. You go and trial, then you kind of know a little bit of what you're getting into before you get into it. I also understand why many clubs do it this way, obviously, because they want to see you in person before they sign on the dotted line. That's pretty standard. And, I'm accustomed to it. I've trialed a bunch of different times, Germany, Denmark, wherever, I've done that before. So it's not like I was fish out of water with that. So eventually comes down to it. I kind of tell my family and they understand. And I left in the end of January and flew down here to Perth in Western Australia. So that's where I've been for the past couple months. That's where, like I said, the contacts were for the agency. Working holiday visa is super easy to get here in Australia. So that was easy, and it gives me a year here in the country. So I was like, you know what? There's not a lot of barriers to entry for me to come here. I can go and I can play. I can also work to support myself. I can speak the language here in Australia. All these things were kind of just making it the perfect package, I felt like, for me to go and, hey, if I'm going to do this again, let me go do it in a way where I can really set myself up for success. And this opportunity had kind of all of those check boxes. It had a way for me to support myself financially. It had a way for me to support myself socially. And I could go, I could play football, I could test myself. And kind of, even if I have to step down maybe a level a little bit, which the level's not bad here, I can just get games under my belt again. And I can get that feeling of playing. I can get a CV built back up. And then, whatever happens beyond is whatever happens beyond. So I figure this all out. I speak to my family about it. They kind of understand. And I think they kind of understand that this is more just about, like I said, that personal journey for me. It's about kind of facing potential fears. It's about facing potential obstacles that I had in the past and tackling them head on and pushing past them. So I arrived here in January, and there were about 6-7 clubs, I think, that we had spoken about that were interested in me trialing or were willing to have me in on a trial. And one of the first ones, or the first one that I went to, was one that I'd asked to see me prior to the other clubs. And so I went and trained with them probably within a week of landing in Australia, and went the first night on a Monday night. thought I did really well, thought I fit in well, had a conversation with the coach after the session, and he said, hey, I think you did really well. I think you fit in well, like got good feedback, got positive feedback, and then said, hey, come back on Wednesday, which is when they train again, and then we'll talk after the session. I'm like, perfect. That's great. I'm on the phone, with the agent and everything. I'm like, yeah, I think it went really, really well. I got good feedback. I have a good feeling about Wednesday. I'm like, what do you think about maybe, just trying to go somewhere else, perhaps Tuesday, tomorrow, just to kind of get another club, another training session, if nothing else, right? Another training session under my belt, because I'd been there a week and hadn't trained with any teams. And who knows, right? Maybe they offer me something and now I have a little bit of leverage here. So we kind of set that up for Tuesday night. The next day I get a text from the coach of the first club, and they say, hey, can you come down to the clubhouse tonight? And I'm like, I call the agent. I'm like, hey, what do you think? And he's like, yeah, I think they're going to offer you tonight. I think they want to sign you tonight. I don't think they want to, let it go till Wednesday. And I'm like, well, what do you think about, the other training session? He says, I think, you should probably, it's kind of late in the preseason here. Like preseason is really about to kick off. And I would kind of make sure that you get a contract sorted before, it gets kind of too past the window and teams aren't really looking anymore. So I'm like, you know what, that kind of makes sense. I know I left a little bit later than other people did. And when preseason started, I didn't get there till the end of January. So I'm like, all right, yeah, that kind of makes sense. I got a good vibe from these guys. And I'm like, yeah, let's go and do it. So sure enough, yeah, I show up to the club that night on Tuesday. And they're like, yeah, we liked you. We had a good feeling, and we just, instead of pushing it off, we just kind of want to show you that we're serious about it and that we just want to kind of get everything signed and sorted right now. And we don't want to kind of let you slip away. So obviously that's a feeling, that's amazing to me and makes you feel valued and like you're a valuable part of the team. So yeah, the club that I signed for this year is called Subiaco AFC and plays in the state league in Western Australia. And, like I said, we had really good conversations signing that contract. It was an amazing experience to sign that contract and kind of what felt like my first like fully fledged professional one, just because, Germany was a different situation. Denmark was a different situation. And, I'm sure we can argue till the bitter end about what's professional, what's not, but I'm not really here to do that. So I'm just excited about what I got offered. I'm excited that I'm here and I'm playing football again. So yeah, I signed on that Tuesday. Then I go back in to, training Wednesday, and I've kind of kicked it off and been with them ever since. As I look back on it, sure, did I potentially kind of, leave a better offer on the table or a little more money on the table? Perhaps, right? I could have gone to the other club. They could have offered me, more, and I could have taken it, or I could have come back to the Subiaco and said, hey, these guys offered me more. But at the end of the day, like, I've loved all the people around the club. I feel like I am finding the joy and the love in football again. Like, I'm recording this on Wednesday, the 29th, after my first league game where I played, started. We got a big 2-2 result, big 2-2 draw. And I'm going to training tonight, and like I feel excited to go to training. Like I like playing football, and it kind of just has reminded me, it's brought back all those things. It's like, yeah, this is why I was doing this. So I don't care, if I potentially left something better out there on the table. Like I said, I've loved everybody around the club, and I'm grateful for what they've given me, and I'm grateful for what the football has been like for me in this process. So with that being said, though, it's not been smooth sailing from start to finish. I signed, I started to play really, really well. I thought I was in some of they call it the night series here. It's like a preseason tournament. I was playing some of those games. We struggled as a team, but I thought, I had a little bit up and down performances, but overall, like I felt like I had some solid performances that I put in the tank. I was getting fitter. I was getting sharper again. adjusting to the heat down here because it's crazy. And then I injured my hamstring. So then I had to go to the physio. I had to take time off. This last game, this past weekend, was my first game back fully fit after that injury. So I'm still kind of building my fitness back up as we kick off the season here. Luckily it was easy for me to also find a job. I was able to find one in a restaurant pretty quickly when I arrived down here. But with that being said, it's now a lot on my plate. Like I have the podcast, I have playing, which is of course important. And that's not a just show up to training at night. That's also like doing extra training, gym, taking care of your body, things of that nature. I have to balance that with work. I have to balance that with the business stuff, all of it, right? And it's a busy schedule. It's not one that I'm complaining about, but it's just a lot to try and make sure that I can manage. I also started coaching for the club because, that's all I had was extra time laying around. So I'm coaching the U16s for the club. So that's been a cool experience as well, getting involved in the club a little bit more. I also have just sort of now found I'm going to have to move one more time before my time in Australia this round comes to an end. But I finally found kind of a way to live for a little bit longer than just Airbnbs for a couple of weeks, because I came here and didn't realize that the rental market was absolutely insane. I would show up to inspections for apartments where there'd be like 40 people there. And, I don't know. I applied for so many apartments, never got any. And I finally figured out a way through real just luck and chance to find a place to stay. So I've got that sorted, but that was a huge stress for me in the beginning. So it's been an amazing journey so far. It's been an amazing experience, but like I said, it hasn't been met without its fair share of adversity and hardship. But that's the beauty of it, right? That's kind of what I knew going into this. I knew that I needed that challenge again. I knew that I needed the hardship to fall upon me to show myself that I could rise to the occasion and I could battle through it. So to make a very long story short, I am in Perth, Western Australia, signed with a state league club called Subiaco AFC. I just played the first match of the season. Like I said, we got a draw 2-2. I started in the midfield and thought I played pretty well. So I'm really just super excited to continue to train with the team, continue to gel with these guys, and just get matches, right? Kind of build up my CV and get that feeling like what it is, get that feeling back of what it is to play a season all the way through and to be in a team kind of consistently week in and week out. I know there's going to be more adversity and hardship that I'm going to face, whether it be on the pitch or off the pitch. I'm not sure, but I feel like in a weird way, this might sound crazy, but I feel like I've already achieved kind of what I've come down here to achieve. I've proven to myself that I can still play at this level. I've proven to myself that I can go and I can live on my own. I can go and live on my own in another country. I've proven to myself that what happened in Denmark doesn't define me, and I am a person that can go and do wild ass crazy brave shit and still kind of come up kicking on the other side. So that's been like sort of an amazing experience for me, where I want to be here for this whole entire season, but I almost feel like even if it got ripped away from me tomorrow, I'm okay. I'm at peace, I guess, if that makes sense, because I know who I am. I also have kind of learned like my performances on the weekend or my performances in training, they don't define again who I am as a person, right? Like I can play super well and that's awesome. I can also not play well and that doesn't make me a shit person, which is something that I know it sounds crazy to people out there, but that wasn't always the case, especially, when I was in Denmark. So I feel like I'm just in such a kind of more free and like flow state with my approach to the game. Like I said, I have that joy back, and it's really nice. It's cool to feel that. Just cool to feel like excited to go to training again, and that football is fun, because that's why we all started doing this in the beginning. Whatever it is that our passion is, we started doing it in the beginning because it was fun and we liked it. And sometimes you get so far away from that you can't really seem to find your way back. So, like I said, excited to just really just kick on with the season, help them as much as I can, help them achieve their goals as a team, help them do as the best that they possibly can with this season. And yeah, that's really all that I'm focused on for right now. I think if anyone, is kind of curious about what the future may hold, I don't know. I really don't. My focus right now is just, it's different than what it was when I was in Denmark, right? My focus right now is just to simply be in the moment, kind of live every day to the fullest of the experience that I have here, that I am in Australia and I'm experiencing new cultures, new people, new everything. And so enjoy that on a day to day. Football wise, go and push myself and work as hard as I can. And like I said, hopefully the team can have some success. Hopefully I can have some success as well and can be an asset in them doing big things. And then, whatever may come after this, then we'll cross that bridge when we get there. And it could be I go and play, here again. It could be I play somewhere else. It could be I don't play. It doesn't, that to me doesn't matter right now. It just matters about enjoying the here and now. So that will be another episode update for way on down the road. And yeah, so hopefully that answers questions, because I'm sure people who have kind of been following from afar maybe have some questions if they've seen any of the couple ominous social media posts or anything like that from my personal page. But that's kind of the update here in Perth. Loving it. Weather's crazy. So much better than where I left in upstate New York. I left a snowstorm and then I came here and it was 90 degrees and it's sunny every day. I swear to God, it's rained like 4 times. So I'm in heaven when it comes to that. Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's all that I got. I've got to run because I've got some training to go and get to tonight. I appreciate you guys so much for listening to this episode, listening to all the episodes. Make sure that you tune in, subscribe, follow whatever channel or platform you listen to on, because we've got more episodes already banked and coming with some special guests coming up soon. When it comes to this specific kind of genre of content, when it's me giving the updates, something that I had thought about maybe doing, if you guys are interested, is doing weekly episodes with just me kind of updating you on what's going on in Australia, what it's like playing here, things of that nature. So the thing that I thought for was doing that over on the Patreon. For those of you who don't know, we have a Patreon page, patreon.com/in11pod. It's linked down below. So what I will say is, if we can get to 10 patrons on the Patreon page, then I will do weekly podcasts with giving you the updates of what's going on in Australia and keeping you just informed about everything. And maybe we can even do kind of questions and answers about what it's like to play down here. Right now, if you are a Patreon member, which we do have a few, you get early access to all the episodes. You get access to the episodes a day before anybody else gets them. You get the release. But like I said, I want to do a little bit more content for those of you who are interested. So if you sign up for the Patreon page, if we can get that number up to 10 patrons, then we can do some exclusive episodes for the Patreon only. So make sure, go check out that link, run that number way up there so that we can get those rocking and rolling as well. Because I think that would be fun and definitely interesting for those of you who are curious. That's all I got for me. That's all the updates. That's all everything. If anybody's got questions, you know where to pop them. Instagram, TikTok, in11pod. Like I said, follow that Patreon link down below, patreon.com/in11pod. Thank you for your continued support. Thank you for your success. Thank you for your support in my success. I guess is the better way to say that. I cannot express my gratitude enough that you guys are, a part of me even being here right now. Your support means the world to me, and you are a huge factor in me still kicking this ball around and, being in this new place. So thank you very much, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.